everyone. This is Chris again with the Caffeinated Contractors. We're here today. We're going to be talking about home design, working with a designer, whether it be with a new construction or remodel project. And of course, I'll be drinking coffee. Jodi, are you drinking coffee today?
Look, I've
All
got
right,
my
you
mug.
brought it?
I've got my
Awesome.
coffee. So do you take yours black or do you put anything in it?
I'm straight black. I used to put creamer in it back in the day, but I'm like, what's the use? I'm just drinking it for the caffeine. But over time, I actually love the taste of just plain coffee. It's delicious.
It's much better just to have black plain coffee. I have family visiting and I always, as a treat, they love the creamer. So now I'm like hooked on the creamer. So I'm gonna have to unhook myself from that sugar.
Yeah, no, really, it's dangerous. But yeah, I used to get into frappuccinos and things like that. That's how I got into coffee. But now I'm like, I gotta stay with the sugar, just want the caffeine, but I love the taste. And I'm always going to Black Rifle Coffee. There's one about 2 miles down the road here. So I went and picked up my cold brew, almost done with it. And then I have some supply over here too. So always Black Rifle.
Backup.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it.
Excellent. So it's always good to drink some coffee, talk design, talk construction. And today we're talking with Jodi Peterman with Elizabeth Erin Designs. You're out of Pensacola-ish, Florida.
Yeah. Yep. So I have a home base office here in like Fort Walton Beach area, close to Pensacola. And then I have my main office is in Iowa, where I have designers. And then I have another satellite office in St. Louis. We kind of go all over. We make the rounds.
Yeah. Is there any strategy behind the placement of those satellite offices?
It's just where, I the years that shall not be named is what I call those wonderful years in the 2021.
Yeah.
Those times.
Yeah.
We learned as a company that, to keep employees happy, pivoting was a great idea. And one way we could pivot was to allow people to, live or move or be where they want to be and still have a job because, thank goodness I have an amazing team that still loves working for me.
Awesome.
And so one of them, their boyfriend moved to St. Louis. And so that's where they're at. And I'm glad she can work from there. And then me being in Florida, that was a recent move in September because my daughter and son-in-law got stationed here. Okay. And had our first grandbaby, and I didn't want to miss out on any baby snuggles. So that's how we ended up in lovely Fort Walton Beach, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, that's really cool. The whole virtual thing, and this is totally off topic. We have another podcast called The Virtual Voice. And on that podcast, we talk about company culture in the virtual world. And it just seems like that's what you guys are living. So that's pretty cool that you just open that up like, hey, wherever you're going to move, we're going to open up a satellite office. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I just feel like you are where you're at. And then when things happen easy, you just don't fight it as a business owner. I've been in business for I'm over 20 years. So we're going on our 21st year. So when things just start happening and falling in, you just kind of like ride that wave, like let it happen and see where it goes. And it's not a time to be fearful. It's a time to, hey, let's see where God, universe, let's see where we go with this. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Gosh, we should do a virtual voice podcast too on this. This is totally cool. This is totally what we're talking about. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Because we're doing some major pivoting, rebranding, refocusing, restructuring, like how do we make the client experience better, which is, I think, what we're going to get into a little bit when we start talking about that process.
Absolutely. Yeah. So aside from the amazing company culture that you have, can you tell us a little bit more about Elizabeth Erin Designs?
Yeah. So I started the company back in New Jersey in 2023. And it was just me and a business partner. And 2007, I bought her out and started my own company. And the company was her name to begin with. And so I obviously needed to change the name. And I was going to use Jodi Peterman Designs because I thought that was the coolest. It was like, just a nice all around name. Right. And then I would tell people that, and they would start laughing at me, like literally laughing at me. And I'm like, I don't get it. Like, why, when I say that, is it so funny? And they're like, do you not watch Seinfeld? I'm like, I don't really watch much TV. I don't watch much TV. But they're like, I know, they're like, "Oh, Jay Peterman is Elaine's goofy boss, and he's just made out to be like the village idiot." And I'm like, okay, well, we definitely don't want to go down that road. And then, way back when the internet was, getting going, there's
Mhm.
been a Jay Peterman catalog company out since the 1800s. So to get
Mhm.
web presence would have been a little challenging. So
Yeah.
I decided to steal my daughter's middle names and use those to create the company name, which is where Elizabeth Erin Designs comes from. And so we were going good in New Jersey for a while. And then 9/11 happened, and my brothers are both in the military and they got called up.
Mhm.
And I just felt like I needed to be home near my family to help out with, the wives and the kids and my nieces
Sure.
and nephews. And so we ended up going back there, and then it just kind of grew, because in New Jersey it was always just me. And so then, you can probably attest to this too. So you start like, what are the things you don't like doing? Like, I don't like doing admin stuff, like don't
Mhm.
like it. So I hired that out first, and then
Yeah.
accounting, forget about it. Then and then it was like, okay, let's add an intern. And so we have a really good partnership with you and Iowa State University, and where's another company? I can't remember what other college they're from, but anyways, this is a local college, and the girls, look to, and guys have done internships at our firm. And it's been great because that's how I've collected and curated my employees.
Wow.
So
That's cool. Yeah. So it's interesting. So I'm speaking later this month at the Build Expo here in Houston, and I'm talking about how to scale your business with remote team workers. And one of the things I talk about is, how do you know when to hire? Well, what do you hate doing? What are you not good at? Those are the first two things that you hire out for, right?
absolutely. Well, and anything that you can hire out that doesn't necessarily touch your company branding is great. Like
Yeah.
social media, I will always try and hang on to. I don't want to outsource that, because social media is where your authenticity comes through as a business. And I feel like sometimes you're just posting to post, or somebody doesn't, they really have to get in and know you. So I have, somebody hired just to do our social media, that they just do ours. That's it. They're my
Yeah.
employee.
That's awesome.
And then, some of my designers that meet with clients, they need to have our company branding down, and they need to be on board with where we're at. But like, if we get busy, which happens in spurts, instead of hiring people part-time, I have people that I can hire outsourced to do some of the things that, we, take a little bit of time, like the renderings and things like that. I can outsource that. And I've trained them to do, how our company operates and works. And so it's been really wonderful because, I just think it's great when you can do that.
Yeah, and it sounds like you have like this really strong support back office admin, and just everything that you need to run the business, where people were to come to you, they can feel like they're landing on a good place where they're going to be served well.
Yeah.
Um,
We're
so
always
when,
trying to one up that, but we're really
yeah,
working on trying to create a better client experience. So that's what I've been working on in my business the
yeah,
past couple months. So
excellent.
yeah.
So when somebody they're looking to embark on a project, whether it be new construction, remodel, whatever, and they start interviewing designers, what are some good questions, maybe top 3 questions that they should be asking?
Sure. I'll volunteer this information if people don't ask it. Like, I do a complimentary 30-minute consultation. So if people aren't asking these questions, I will let them know. I think a lot of what people want to know is, okay, what is your total process? Like, how do you work with a client? Then how do we integrate in with the contractor? When do you fall off? When do I take over?
Mhm.
How does that all work? Because every designer is different. And then what if we want to engage your assistance with furniture? What does that look like? Because in several areas, several of the states we work in, there are designers out there that will, they'll say, we'll do free interior design, but you have to buy all your furniture through us. But
Mm,
you're paying an arm and a leg for
yeah,
that furniture. And then every house tends to have that same look. So
uh,
I say how we stand out, or if you're wanting that, that's fine. That's great. Then utilize that. But what I feel like is unique about us, and what I would look for in a designer, is somebody that can do pretty much anything. They can customize exactly what I want, to give me what I need. If
okay.
that makes any sense. Like, we have over 125 lines of furniture, but we can also create a shopping list if people just want to go shopping on their own. We can do things of that nature. We can just be involved to do a master bathroom rendering, and maybe they can get the rest of the selections themselves. So we can be engaged at any point of the process and things like that. So I think that's a good question to ask. The other one I'm passionate about is, how are you going to protect my budget? This is my budget. How are you going to protect it? Because I think that's an important question to ask, because in our firm, we don't get bids. That's all up to the contractor to do that. We're working on the designs and the tools that the contractor needs to obtain those bids.
Gotcha.
But we're not actually getting that. So I always say we'll, because I feel like sometimes there's a disconnect. It's hard. And you can maybe attest to this too. As a contractor, if somebody's really wanting a certain look, like they have ideas and Pinterest images, but how do you make that translate into their space? Like, how do you make that work for their space and their budget? That's where I think like a designer coming in can assist with all of that and create the documents that a contractor could take then and go get bid out, and then at that point, we always save, like, as far as my firm is, we always save one round of revisions after those bids come in, so that we can talk with the contractor and say, hey, here are some options on how you can get back into budget, because 9 times out of 10, the visions and the Pinterest pictures that we see online are not going to match up to the budget, but that's how we can help protect the budget, because you're getting all the designs and selections done up front. So that's a good question to ask like that. And then my other one is, I always want to find out whether it's a potential employee or anything, or a builder, I always ask, how do you build a sandwich? Tell me how you make a sandwich, because I want to know, like, some people will say, well, you get a piece of bread and you put some peanut butter and jelly and you slap it together and you eat it. And then there's other people, employees that I've hired, they're like, you take this, you cut the bread 1/4 of an inch, and then you put on a thin layer of this, and then you layer all the different things on, like you want somebody detail orientated to be able to give your contractor everything they need, so that you can, if you're bidding it out through multiple contractors, you're able to get apple to apple bids, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think those questions are important.
Yeah, those details are helpful. Like for me, I'm just thinking, okay, build a sandwich. Okay, what's the scope of work here, and who's wanting it, and what exactly do they want in that sandwich? Like those are the questions going on in my mind, right?
Yeah.
And so those details and someone being that meticulous is very helpful for me, because there's been times where I go to a place, go to someone's house, and recently last month, and I said, okay, what would you like to do? Because he wanted a full remodel. I'm like, well, what would you like to do? I don't know. You tell me. I'm like, I can't tell you what you want, man.
I know.
Help
Well,
me out here.
that's the problem. Like, I even like my flooring people, like when we were right next door to our flooring company, and people would be like asking them, what tile should I put in my bathroom? Well, like there's a million tiles. Well, can't you just give me a price? And I think that people just expect, I call this the old way, where you're working off of allowances and you're expecting the contractor to give you a baseline, knowing you're going to go over. Like, I don't even know what the percentage is now that all of the price increase, because people's expectations versus what it actually costs, because those HGTV shows are amazing, but their pricing is way off. They're not accurate at all. They're getting things for free. And I could go into a whole podcast just about how crazy that is, but the pricing's not accurate. And so that's why we always save that third set of revisions, so that we can say with the contractor, hey, here's where their budget is. Here's where they're at. What are some things they could do to still keep the integrity of the design, but scale back, or maybe even split it into a couple phases? Because you never want to put something in phase 2 that it would be more productive and beneficial to do in phase 1.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely.
If you're doing new floor, you're going to want, and you want new trim, then it's better to group those things together, so to speak.
Yep, absolutely. So, okay. So assuming somebody, wants to work with a designer, they've done their interview, they're like, okay, I'm going to go with this designer. What are some of the things that a homeowner should have in place before working with a designer? Do they need to know certain things to help you do your job?
It's helpful if they have an idea or direction or some sort of inspiration, that that the lead designer and they can go over with in that meeting. A lot of times people don't do this every single day, and I think that some designers and contractors, we're doing this every single day, so homeowners don't think to ask all the questions. Like if you're building a new home, do you want a zero entry shower? Do you need grab bars? Are you going to be aging in place? Do you want a bench, or do you want to just do a teak bench that you can take in and out? Do you want a shave shelf? Where do you want your niche at? You can't put, at least in Iowa, you cannot put the water wall on the exterior wall because of freezing and things like that. So you have to, build that out or further the wall
Right.
out. Just different things like that.
Yeah. And so I know that that you are working on your experience with the customer, and you have some amazing tips for them. So you have like 5 tips to make their experience working with a designer amazing. What are those?
Well, I say first is gather your team, right? You want to have at least a couple of contractors you're interviewing, an architect. I think the architect is probably, if
Mhm.
needed, is the first person to engage.
Sure.
Because without it, the contractor's just gonna be like, when you get your floor plans done, let me know, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Architect or excuse me, an architect can take you so far. Maybe I had a
Right.
little too much coffee. My brain was acid in my mouth. And then you don't have to work with a designer, but a designer kind of creates that triangle part of the team. If
Yeah.
you're not going to hire a designer, then you need to take some time off to plan to do the selecting yourself and get your ducks in a row. Because like I said, contractors don't have a magic 8 ball. They don't understand and know everything you need. So when we start engaging, we'll say, okay, we'll get with the architect, we'll get with the client. Sometimes we're meeting with the client before they even have an architect, and we're talking through programming, right?
Mhm.
How you want to use the space. What do you need in each space to function? So gathering your team is crucial. And like I said, you don't have to have a designer. It will make things a little bit easier visually if you're not a visual person, if you're a very
Yeah.
symmetrical person, because the first thing we do is we start working on the floor plans, right?
Yep.
We'll start doing the floor plans, and we'll take people through a 3D version of it with no finishes on the walls, but just so they can see the space.
Yeah.
Like, do you want a big closet, or is a big closet not important to you? Like, do you want a freestanding tub, or do you just want, a nice shower? All the different things that go into making that
Mhm.
space possible. And then after that, I would say that after you gather your team, we're finalizing your plans and your layouts. So once you get the space kind of planned out, and what project is coming to mind is we did a project in New York, in Brooklyn, and they had a 3-story brownstone brick building. And he said, basically it's a rectangle box. I need the tenants I'm going to rent out for upstairs. The next level is going to be, our main floor with the dining room and kitchen, and below is going to be, the bedrooms and things like that. So
Mhm.
basically we had to break it up and make sure they had everything they needed. And then they sent it to an architect, which was really cool because we were able to give them something that they need. And they just made sure everything was structurally sound and all that good stuff. Cause
Yeah.
designers can design beautiful things, but if it's
Exactly. Right.
function at home, we're gonna get no big problem. So finalizing your plans. And then once we get the space planned out, we want to put furniture in there. And we want to take you through to make sure. I had one client that was very specific. She's like, I need 3 feet behind my sofa so that I can stand outside and I want to watch the wildlife, and have a cup of coffee in the morning. That's one thing I want to do. And she wasn't able to do that with the plan she had. So we were able to then just add on a few feet, which then shifted everything to add on a few feet
Oh, wow.
because she's very symmetrical.
Mhm.
So the fireplace was lined up with the stove, which was lined up with the hood. And so by adding the 3 feet onto the living room, it was throwing everything off. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, but that's like, we worked with her for 2.5 years. Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Long project.
Yep, because we ended up going into phase 3, which is furniture and accessories and all of that fun stuff, after we get through all that. So
Yeah.
gathering your team, finalizing your home plans and layouts, which is really, really good. And then budget. Nobody likes the B word. Like
Yeah.
nobody likes to talk about the B word, but it's very important because you not only do you need to think about what your budget is or where you would like to land. And like I said, a lot of times people aren't accurate with, you can't do everything that you want within the budget.
Yeah.
But you want to know, where do you want to put your budget dollars? A lot of people, like contractors, especially in Iowa, they will give people allowances to work off of. And so the first thing you're doing, like, let's say you're doing a kitchen remodel, they're
Mhm.
going to go and pick out appliances first so that you can get them to the cabinet designer. So then you can start designing cabinets. Well, appliances, you're probably already going over because they bid out a mid-price appliance line and everybody wants different things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they have some really cool appliances now.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you're going to do is cabinets. You're probably going to go over. It's
Yeah.
just the way it is because of this, the door finishes and two tones and different things that you want there. So knowing what your budget is and where you want to put your budget dollars is amazing. So when you're working with the designer, before you even get the contractor involved, you're picking everything out. Everything is designed. I'm talking down to, how do you want the tile installed? What grout color do you want? Do you want the grout with the sealer or not? Do you want the coating put on your shower door to make everything just slide off like easy clean, or what? Like everything detailed out. Because then as you go through and you hand all those documents to your contractors say, okay, here's where we're at with budget. You can go back and say, well, this lighting wasn't extremely important to me, but the sound system was. So let's cut back on the lighting a little bit
Okay.
to get us the sound system we want. Because you haven't said, like I like to say, you haven't said yes to the dress yet. You haven't signed off working when you're not working on allowances. When you're working with the designer up front, getting everything designed and selected, you're not working off of allowances. So you can go back and say, I don't want that, or I don't want to spend that much money on cabinets, knowing that I want this really cool tile that I picked out.
Yeah.
What's important to you and where do you want to put your money? So budget.
Good.
And the next.
Jump in real quick on the budget piece. I got a quick story. Someone I know really close to me was working with a designer, and the project was just about done, and then it wasn't done, and then in order to be completed, there was a change order, and it went like $12,000 over budget. And I told this person, I said, next time you get into something like that, talk to me first, because that scope of work needs to be dialed in before the project gets started. That way you're all on the same page, you know how much money you're spending. And if a change order happens, it's because you opened up a wall and there was a pipe that needed to be fixed, or there's an electrical issue, or you ripped up the flooring and then you got foundation issues or something like that. Outside of that, you really shouldn't be getting much of a change order unless you change the scope of work.
Exactly, which is why having everything documented, and that's why I call it setting your team, gathering your team. That first step is insurance.
Yeah.
Because you are not working with your contractor on most projects. You're working with them for a while. So you have to do your due diligence and make sure it's a good fit for everybody. But having a designer on board is just insurance visually to make sure you're getting what you want.
Sure. Yeah, that's excellent.
Yep. So knowing where you want to put your dollars in, and then a lot of times, because this happened to me. So we moved from New Jersey to Iowa, and this is why I'm so passionate about the budget part of it. We had a horrible experience building our home. I can't go into details because
okay.
I can't go into details, but it was not great. So I decided, instead of being really sad and becoming the angry person I was becoming because of the situation, it eats at you because you don't like being taken advantage of. I'm like, I'm just going to use this as extra college, because this is just extra schooling for me. Now I can make sure that my clients don't have to go through this. That's how I'm going to turn this into this sour, horrible, disgusting lemonade. Or sour lemons into lemonade. So taking that experience out. So a lot of times you think you're on budget and then something happens, because things do. You're not working with the right person, let's say. And like, I had furniture and window treatments. Like, that was part of the thing of moving back to Iowa. Like, I wanted money in the budget to be able to purchase those items, because there's nothing worse than having a brand new house and thinking you're going to get a few new things to fill in, and then not having the funds to be able to do that. So a lot of times, the communication isn't flowing. For example, I had one client who was building a home, and she was out of state. And she was building a home in a different state, and she was flying back and forth because she had businesses in both states.
Okay.
And she was extremely beyond busy, and she engaged me over halfway through the project. I think the cabinets had been ordered, but she didn't realize she signed off on cabinets, and they did every single cabinet the same, and she spent all this money on this expensive glaze she didn't even know she approved.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. So I was digging in, the more I was digging in, I was finding stuff. I go, I think you need to figure out where you're at on budget. Cause she's like, the house cannot cost more than 1.2. And she goes, I need help with lighting. So I go, what's your budget for lighting? How many fixtures? She goes, contact the contractor. I did so. He's like, well, I go, she's at what? She said, no more than 1.2 for the home. How many light fixtures does she need? And where where are we at here? So I can help her. And he was very quiet. And I was like, is something wrong? He's like, well, she's over 2.4 million now with the house.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she has 50 light fixtures to pick out. And I'm like, okay, or 52 light fixtures to pick out. And I said, okay, can I
Wow.
have the locations and all of that? And I'll get started. What's the budget for the light fixtures since she's already so far over? And he goes, well, I planned $5,000 for her budgeting light fixtures on a
Oh,
2.4 million.
wow.
So it's just because a lot of my clients are busy professionals and they're not in it. And so had
Yeah.
she known, she could have saved almost $30,000 just not having the glaze and, having somebody look over the cabinets, which is way more than what design fees would have been
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do.
Gosh, that's crazy.
I know. I have stories upon stories like that. Like one of my clients decided just to hire us for furniture that she wanted to do all the selecting herself, which is totally cool. But she called me in a panic because she had 4 little kids under the age of 6. And this was this custom builder. And she goes, I did a paint walkthrough. I was letting the kids run around on the main floor because it's empty. And she goes, now I have black marks all over, about 2 to 3 feet high, all over my walls. And I go, well, what the heck were the kids doing? And she's like, they were just probably touching it. And she goes, but the thing is it won't come off. And I was like, okay, I already knew what the problem was. I said, go down to the basement and read me what is on the paint can. And they use their standard is flat paint on the walls everywhere for an $800,000 custom home 7 years ago, flat paint on the walls,
Wow.
not eggshell, with 4 little kids under the age of 6. So she paid $9,000 to have the entire main floor repainted. And I was like, do you know that I could have designed your whole house and the fee wouldn't have even been quite that much?
And that's the importance of just gathering your team at the beginning, getting everyone on the same page.
Yes,
Yeah.
because if she would have taken the time to make a paint chart, which said all the finishes and submitted that to her builder would have said at that point, we're going to have to charge another $2,000 if you want eggshell, because our standard is to do flat paint. Then she would have known. She would have said, okay, pay the 2,000. But then now she ended up paying like 9,000 more
Gosh.
to do it. I know. And I have stories upon stories, and everybody's like, I should have called you sooner. I should have called you sooner.
Yeah. So we got to gather your team, finalize your home plans and layouts, budget,
and then protecting your budget. So whether you're hiring a designer or not, that's just part of knowing the process of the designer. Like we make, for example, 3 documents. The first document has all the floor plans in it. It has like we color code and do everything for flooring transitions. We do electrical plans. We do paint or tile transition. So anytime you're going to do wallpaper, paint, tile, anything on the wall that's different than the normal paint color, we call it out and color code it. And all of that's in this ID document with nice crisp images of like your doors, what your trim's going to look like, renderings, like we'll do like, what is your kitchen going to look like done? All of those things are in that ID document. And the next thing we make is a paint chart. Like I spoke about, we'll say what's going where, if it's going to be wallpaper, we'll note to make sure the walls are skim coated. If it's a remodel or new construction, don't put any texture on those walls, just so you don't have to pay for different things, right? Or like sometimes people will say like, I want tile on my bathroom wall up 42 inches, all the way around. So then we can note for the, on the next document we make on the sub sheet, which is our sourcing document, it lists by vendor what we source every single product for every part of the new build or remodeled home. So let's say if they want tile 42 inches up, we can say on the countertops, no backsplash or side splash, because that'll save them money. Like all those little details, like where did we source everything from? which I think you would, as a contractor, would love, because you could just, with links on it, you click and order,
Yeah, this whole process makes it so much easier for me because the scope of work is not vague. We know exactly what needs to be done to detail, and it leaves no room for error, right?
Right.
And that's what I like about this as a contractor, because there's no like disputes afterwards. As long as we follow the scope,
Yep.
we're all good to go, and we're going to all be happy people at the end of the project.
Exactly. And that's the main part of it. And it really just does protect your budget, because knowing what it's going to cost to get exactly what you want up front, so that you can make the educated decisions on where you want to put those dollars and where you don't, that's fine. Like, we were able to, one of our clients' projects came in at 177 for a main floor remodel and a master bathroom remodel, and their budget was 120. So we were like, okay, if we take all the extra stuff out of the dining room we were going to do, if you switch your cabinet door handles, if we don't do this here, if we do this here, if we, just came up with all these ideas. And so then they were able to pick and choose, like, okay, we don't want this, we're okay with this. And then we got them to like 117 to do that. And then they're going to do their phase 2, which will be the master bathroom down the road after they recoup from doing that. But they wanted to pay cash. They didn't want to. So rather than getting into it, thinking they can get all this stuff done for their price and then being really sad about it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And one thing that I was thinking about as you were talking is, when you have that team in place, that whole thing, team concept is important to me. Just contractors' worlds, there's egos involved, and there's times where maybe the contractor will want to talk directly to the owner and say, oh, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And I just want to, like, the listeners who want to work with a designer, make sure that's filtered through your designer first before you give permission for anything, because that's when your budget gets screwed up.
Yeah, not only that, but then it just doesn't look right. For example, we do a lot of multifamily properties for investors, and one of them decided to go rogue, and they couldn't get the backsplash that I selected. So they went rogue, and they're like, we'll just do a white picket fence subway tile, but they did it in instead of doing it in white, which would have been better, they did it in bright blue, like a bright blue.
Oh my gosh.
But our accent wall was blue, and it ruined the color of the cabinets, and our floating shelves we did in a punch of color because everything else was so subdued. So I'm like, you're going to have to, like, when I went there to go install the furniture for the community spaces, I'm like, you got to paint the shelves. You're going to have to paint the accent walls now, because you're not ripping out the tile in 4 buildings. But just run it by me just to make sure, because I would have caught it and said, get it in white instead of blue. Like, you don't know what you're doing when you make those small changes.
Yeah. And that's the thing about the team, getting everyone on the same page. Everyone has their role. The contractor's role is to follow the scope of work, and then the designer designs. That's why they're called designers, right?
Right. Well, yes. And we just want to, and it's actually really good, because when you get a really good team together, the whole experience becomes more elevated. Much more elevated, because you've got a process in place. You've got 3 people watching your back, and nobody's out to outdo, one another. You can say, hey, like, I had a contractor call me the other day. He's like, hey, you text me and said I could do 4-inch shelves, but I think, 2 1/4 is going to be much better in scale here. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so right. That was a great catch. Thanks for thanks for having my back on that. And he's like, absolutely. He's like, it's my name on it too. So you've just got that camaraderie there. You've got an extra.
Yeah. That's perfect teamwork right there.
Yeah, exactly. It's so important. Yeah. And then I guess, like, then I had, like, for the 5th, like, item, just to, like, keep in mind, like, just some final notes on that, is just make sure you're not rushing through finding things, making sure you're taking your time and getting what you want. Because I had a client contact us, we did the whole design, then they engaged a local contractor, and they have their own design team. So they were very flustered to get our document, because they needed to translate it into theirs, which was not a problem. I'm like, we can save it as a, Excel spreadsheet. You can copy and paste and download all you want to do, or all you need to do. It's no big deal. But then they kept apologizing. They said, did we engage the designer too soon? Did we do this? And I'm like, they're the builder. I'm sorry that they're working for you. You're not working for them.
Yeah.
You engaged us so that we could take you through the process so you could see all the visualization of how each space was going to look. Yeah. And I hope once they get into the project a little bit more, I hope the builder, recognizes the fact that all the work that went up to it. And hopefully that once they get their head wrapped around our process, just trying to protect the client. But
Yeah.
I just thought that was so funny. I'm like, you're the clients. You want what you want, and that's why you hired us.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be apologizing
They're the
because
boss. They're the boss.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
But
funny.
I just thought it was very interesting. Yeah, it's a little bit different. So when you mentioned like the builder ego thing,
Yeah, I know.
like our way or the highway, I'm like, it
Yeah.
doesn't be like that. And I know that there are designers out there that complicate the situation. I
Yeah.
know that. But all we're out to do really, as far as like from EED standpoint, is to be a part of the team, to protect the client's budget, to make sure their visions are coming to life, and that we're all working together to solve problems, just as another backup, another thing. Because there's so many times when clients were frustrated with the builder and they would come talk to me about it. And I would talk to the builder. I'm like, hey, you might want to check on Sally because she seems a little frustrated because of X, Y, and Z. And then they get upset with me. I'm like, I'm trying to help save. I'm just trying to save the relationship.
You're the
Like, you're
messenger.
in it for a while. Yeah, don't shoot the messenger. I'm trying to help. I'm
That's
just trying to
funny.
help. So yeah. So just make sure you're taking your time and that you're in control and you're making the right decisions for you. And that, keep an open mind, because I'll tell clients all the time. One client, she's building a house and it's the same floor plan as her house now, but she's expanding it a little bit and changing it up a little bit more for function. But she's like, I want this. And I'm like, isn't that how your house is now? Like, you're building new. I'm going
Yeah.
to push you out of the envelope just a little tiny bit. And I'm going to push you out of the box. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, so kind of getting into, let's just say bathrooms, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of practical here. So when somebody is designing a bathroom, and it's pretty exciting. I've been through a couple of new builds and it's kind of fun to just like, hey, this is what we want to do, and you're designing it and stuff. But the reality is, I don't know what a bathroom should look like. I mean, I do now, right? Because I'm a contractor, but back in the day, what are some of the things that people should take into consideration when they are designing, let's say, a bathroom?
Yeah. I think knowing, like, if you want to age in place, like, that's a huge thing. If you're going to be here forever, there's some people, especially like in Florida too, where people are remodeling. Now's the time to think about, how do we get a zero entry so you're not stepping up over the curb? How do we, allow for accessibility into, in case somebody needs to be assisting, showers? Do you want a bench? Like, what are all the things that you want? A lot of people think like just a shower head, but I'm like, if you build this big shower, how are you going to get it clean back there? Like, you probably want a handheld. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you want it to function? Do you want a soaking tub? Do you want the tub inside the shower? Is it that big? Is it, if we're doing it, is there a better way to get a better layout? Can we take part of the closet or reorganize the whole, master bedroom suite to get a better function and layout?
Yeah. I think that's the key word, right? Function. Is it
Mhm.
functional? Like, what kind of life are you living now? What stage is your life?
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier, I think a shave shelf. Like,
Yeah. A
how
shave
many
shelf.
people think about that, right? Like, I walked in my bathroom and I'm like, well, it's a cool bathroom. It's really neat, but there's no function. I just moved in there recently, so it's not functional. It looks nice, but it's not functional. Like, I would have put a shelf up there so I could put all my Costco bottles of shampoo,
Yes.
right? Because the rack isn't strong enough, right?
Yes.
For the ladies who want to shave their legs, a little shelf on the bottom, that's functional. It helps out, right? So when you design it, think about, what kind of life am I living? What kind of things would I like to have in the bathroom to make my life easier?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and like the makeup counter, natural light, just different things to put it. And one thing that people make mistakes on all the time that I should mention is they'll pick out their cabinets first, right? Especially if they're working off allowances, you're picking out cabinets, you have Pinterest images, but then the cabinets you order don't match kind of the Pinterest image for one shape or way or another because of how it was laid out. But let's say they always wanted sconces, like they want 4 sconces, one on each side of the mirror, but how they lay it out, the vanity, it's off center. Maybe you have drawers on one side and your sink on the other. So then to put the mirror it doesn't always center right. So you can't do the lights that way. You end up having to do the overhead lights or just forget the light fixtures altogether and just do a, recess light. But then it's kind of like a bummer. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you're let down, like, I really, really wanted that. And I didn't know, because that's what happens when people work off of allowances and are picking one thing out at a time and don't get to see that whole design done,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, awesome. So, Jodi, I know you work all over the nation. How would somebody, you're not localized, so anybody in the US who wants to work with the designer could give you a call. How would someone contact you if they wanted to talk to you about your services and just get more information about you?
Absolutely. So the best thing is to go to the website, which is Elizabeth Erin, spelled ERIN, designs with an S.com. And they can see our portfolios, and they can go on the contact us page. And on the contact us page, they can fill out a little bit of information so we know they're not a robot.
Yeah,
And then it'll give them access to my calendar, and they can schedule a 30-minute complimentary consultation with me. So I can understand the project scope, and we can bid out only things that they need. And I show them examples of all the documents and renderings so they can say, yeah, I really don't feel like I need that on this one. This is really what I need. And so that's the best way. Or they can contact our office at 515-986-1895. They can do that, or they can just email us at office@elizabetherindesigns.com. And it's Elizabeth, ERIN, and designs with an S.com. That's the best way.
Cool. We'll put that in on our website. And if anyone, check out her website. It's an amazing website. I was just looking at it before the show here, and you got some great pictures of your prior work. You have all the different services you had, because you don't just do residential, you do commercial. So your services are really wide, and you're able to serve a lot of people. So that's excellent.
Thank you.
Cool. So, I mean, we already talked earlier about the whole coffee thing. So let me ask you, I know you're drinking coffee because of the name of the show, but are you more of a coffee person or a tea person?
It kind of depends on the weather. So in Iowa, I was really drinking a lot of tea with almond milk.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden I moved down here, and, as a business owner, I go back to Iowa once a month for a week. So I'm in Iowa, I'm getting a month's worth of work done in a week, like literally morning to night I'm working. And then when I'm here, I'm trying to get things going here in Pensacola, Florida, because we just opened this storefront, this area up. So now I'm into coffee. I feel like I did, because where things were just kind of smooth and going along in Iowa. And then when we made here, it's like now I'm doing double duty work, which I love. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. Absolutely love it. But now I'm more of a coffee girl.
Yeah. When the grind increases, so does the coffee, right?
Absolutely. And then now that it's in Florida, I've been finding I liked iced coffees, like as an afternoon little pick me up, or like those. Have you ever tried noon tablets before?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, they're awesome. So it's like a little tablet. So like I drink a lot of water, but sometimes you want something different. So it's this noon tablet. They have different flavors, and you just pop it in a glass of water, and it fizzes a little bit, and then it all fizzes out, and then it's just like flavored water, but there's no sugar in it, which is what I like. There's a little bit of caffeine.
There we go.
But you have to get the sport kind, because I think some people use it for maybe like it's a light pre-workout maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's NUUN, noon tablets. They're awesome.
Sounds familiar. Maybe I've heard of it. Maybe my boys may have mentioned it or something like that, but I'll take it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Excellent. Well, Jodi, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for telling us about your company and what you all do. And if there's anything that we can do for you, just reach out to us and we'd be happy to help out.
Absolutely. And vice versa. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.